Welcome, this is Heidi Holycross-Lui at the University of Northern Colorado. Today we're going to be discussing Unit 19 over using adjectives and adverbs correctly. Some of this will be review, but keep going because not all of it will be. Adjectives describe or give more information about nouns. Nouns are people, places, things, or ideas. Whereas adverbs describe or give more information about verbs, adjectives, other adverbs, and sentences. We'll go more into detail about how to use these, but let's get started. Let's talk more specifically about adverbs. Here we have two different types of adverbs. Adverbs of manner, which describe or give more information about action verbs. So run quickly, dance beautifully, quickly and beautifully are both adverbs of manner. We also have adverbs of degree, which makes adjectives and other adverbs stronger or weaker. Very beautiful, very quickly. Here, very is an adverb of degree. Let's look at some specific sentences. Maggie lives in a residential area with safe, quiet streets. The house is perfect. The people seem friendly. So let's answer this question. What is the area where Maggie lives like? If you look at the first sentence, you can tell that she lives in a residential area. Residential just means a place where there are a lot of houses. There aren't a lot of businesses. It's a place where people live. What are the streets like? We know from this first sentence that the streets are quiet and safe. What is Maggie's house like? The second sentence tells us that her house is perfect. She's very lucky. Let's look at a different sentence. Wakefield House apartments rent quickly. How do Wakefield House apartments rent? They rent quickly, right? And we can tell because of the word quickly that comes after rent. Alright, let's look at this sentence. It looks like it's almost the same, but it's a little bit different. Wakefield House apartments rent very quickly. So now, how do Wakefield House apartments rent? In this example, they rent very quickly. Here, very is an adverb that's giving more information about another adverb. Very is an adverb of degree. Let's look at another sentence. The rent is surprisingly affordable. Here, is the rent expensive? No, it's not expensive. It says that it's affordable. Let's look carefully at that sentence. There's a word in there that explains how affordable it is. If you guessed that the word surprisingly is the one that gives more information about affordable, you got it correct. Great job. Alright, so sometimes you're going to want to use more than one adjective to describe the same item. So here in English, we have a specific order that you go in. If you don't have them in this order, it's going to sound a little bit funny to us, and we're going to have a chart in the next slide that gives you examples of these types of adjectives. But for now, just know that this is the order they go in. So first you start with opinion, then size, age, shape, color, origin, material, purpose, a noun that's being used as an adjective, and finally the noun that's being modified. Here is the chart. On the left, there's the order of adjectives. It's the same as the one before. Example adjectives are on the right. I'm only going to talk about 2. The others you can pause and look at to make sure you understand them. First, we'll talk about origin. This is where something began or where it came from. So we have Chinese, American, or English. Material is what something's made out of. So our examples here are leather, wool, and plastic. Okay, so let's look at some specific example sentences. The nice, small, old, round, blue, Chinese, leather, relaxing children's chair was $100. You can also put size adjectives first. You'll use a comma between adjectives of the same type. A charming, comfortable house. You don't use a comma between adjectives that are different types. So a charming old house. In the first example, those are probably too many adjectives, right? So we only use a few, maybe 3 or 4 at the most. Okay, let's see what you can remember. Look at these 3 example sentences, and I want you to write down which words are adverbs. Go ahead and pause and do that right now. If you wrote these 4 words down, you did it perfectly. Safely, extremely, quickly, and really. What do you notice about the adverbs? If you looked at them really carefully, you may have noticed that they all end in ly. In English, a lot of adverbs will end in ly, and you can often take an adjective, add ly, and make it an adverb. If you look at the word safely, that's what happened here. Safe is an adjective. We added ly, and we made safely for the adverb. Okay, so let's look more carefully at the adverbs. What are the adverbs describing? Go ahead and draw arrows to show what they're describing. Go ahead and pause and do that right now. In the first sentence, safely is describing walk. Which part of speech is the word walk? It's a verb, right? You knew that. Let's look at the second sentence. Quickly is describing repaired. What part of speech is the word repaired? Like walk, repaired is also a verb. Okay, we're still on the second sentence. Extremely is describing quickly. Which part of speech is quickly? Quickly is an adverb, so extremely is describing another adverb. Okay, so let's look at the last sentence, really. Really is describing comfortable, so what part of speech is the word comfortable? Comfortable is an adjective. So if you look at these sentences, it shows that safely describes a verb, quickly describes a verb, extremely describes an adverb, and really describes an adjective. Let's look more specifically at where adverbs go. Most of the time, they go after the verb. If the verb doesn't have an object, the adverb goes directly after it. But if the verb has an object, the adverb goes directly after the object. We will put an adverb before another adverb, or at the beginning of the sentence they modify. If you look at the third sentence as an example, fortunately, the apartments are nice. The adverb fortunately is at the beginning of that sentence. Adverbs will also go before adjectives if they're modifying the adjective. Let's look at the placement for adjectives. I have 4 example sentences for you. Go ahead and try to figure out where the adjectives go. In the first two sentences, the adjectives are directly before the noun they modify: residential area, enormous apartment. But in the second two sentences, the house is perfect, the people seem friendly. They're after a non-action verb. So be, seem, look, verbs that don't have an action with them. I already mentioned that you can make adjectives into adverbs by adding ly, but be careful because some adjectives already will end in ly and you can't add another ly to it to make it an adverb. So an example of this type of word would be friendly. And I have some examples for you, so go ahead and pause and look at the chart to see how these work. Okay, so there are some exceptions in English to how you use adjectives and adverbs. If you want the adverb form of good, you have to use well. Early is both an adjective and an adverb. And if you look at the third one, hardly, the form for both an adjective and an adverb is hard. If you use the word hardly, it doesn't mean that someone is working hard. It's similar to not very. So if you say, oh, she hardly works, it means she doesn't work very much at all. And then late is also an adjective and an adverb. If you use the word lately, it means in the recent past. We learned that for present perfect. So let's look at some adverbs of degree. It is absolutely perfect. It is fairly good. Does absolutely make the adjective perfect stronger or weaker? It makes it stronger, right? Absolutely perfect. But let's look at the second sentence. It is fairly good. Does fairly make the adjective good stronger or weaker? It makes it weaker. If something is fairly good, it just means it's not bad, it's okay. So adverbs of degree make adjectives weaker or stronger, and we often use them in English to give different shades of meaning. Okay, we're going to move on to different types of adjectives. These are really tricky, so you'll want to pay attention carefully to this part of the video. We're going to be talking about things called participial adjectives. These are adjectives that look like verbs. They either end in ing or an ed, and they will often describe feelings. Excited, exciting, bored, boring. We'll talk more in detail about when you use the ed ones and when you use the ing ones. Let's first look at some example sentences. The traffic is annoying. The tenant is annoyed by the traffic. A tenant is just someone who rents an apartment, so most of you are tenants. Some words that end in ed and ing are adjectives, and like I said before, they're called participial adjectives because they're the present participle or the past participle. So participial is just a fancy word for that. Let's look carefully at the first sentence. The traffic is annoying. What does annoying describe? Annoying in the first sentence is describing the traffic. What does annoyed describe in the second sentence? If you look in the second sentence, annoyed is describing the tenant's feelings. If you use a participial adjective with ed, it's describing someone's feelings. If you use it with an ing, you're describing something that causes feelings. So, for example, if you say he is boring, it means he causes you to feel bored when you're around him. But if you say he is bored, it means he feels bored. Thank you for watching. This is Heidi Holycross-Lui from the University of Northern Colorado, and I hope you've learned more about how to properly use adjectives and adverbs.